When you're scrolling through endless listings of pottery kilns, it's easy to get dazzled by glossy photos and lofty promises. I've seen too many friends spend a good chunk of their studio budget on a kiln that looks perfect on paper, only to discover it can't keep a steady temperature for a simple stoneware bisque, or that the control panel is a nightmare when you're trying to follow a tight glaze schedule. That kind of disappointment is what makes me pause before I hit add to cart, and it's exactly why I'm doing this deep dive. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Skutt KM818 is marketed as a balanced element kiln that can handle everything from low-temperature glaze work to full ceramic firings, and it comes with the easy view door and a handy shelf kit. I spent a few weeks reading up on kiln forums, watching a handful of studio walkthrough videos, and comparing the specs of mid-range electric kilns before I even considered the KM818. What I found is that the real decision point isn't just the advertised 2.6 cubic feet of firing space, it's how that space translates into everyday workflow for hobbyists and small shop owners. First off, who actually benefits from the KM818? If you're a serious hobbyist who fires a mix of functional wear and artistic pieces a few times a month, the size is a sweet spot. It's big enough to accommodate a typical dinner plate set, a few mugs, and a handful of smaller sculptural pieces in a single load, but it's still compact enough to fit into a modest garage or a dedicated studio corner. The balanced element design, which spreads the heating elements more evenly across the chamber, shows up in real life as fewer hotspots. I've seen users report that their stoneware pieces come out with a more uniform color and that they don't have to worry about the occasional overcooked edge that can happen in cheaper kilns with single-zone heating. If you run a commercial studio that needs to fire large batches or oversized sculpture, the KM818 starts to feel cramped. The 2.6 cubic foot chamber limits you to medium-sized work, and the single-phase 240-volt power draw means you'll need a dedicated circuit. For those situations, a larger kiln, say a 3 to 4 cubic foot model, will save you the hassle of multiple loads and the extra turnaround time. Now let's talk about the easy view door. The large glazed window is more than just a visual gimmick. In the studio, being able to watch the color change of a glaze as it approaches the target cone can be a lifesaver. I've watched videos where a potter catches a glaze that's about to run too far and pulls the piece early, saving a whole batch from becoming a mess. The glass is thick enough to stay clear even after dozens of firings, and the latch mechanism feels sturdy, so you don't have to worry about it popping open mid-cycle. The shelf kit, which comes with the KM818, is practical for those who like to separate glazes or keep delicate items away from the hot floor. The shelves lock into place and can be rearranged without much effort. In real-world use, I've seen studio owners load a lower shelf with glazed test tiles, keep the middle shelf for functional wear, and use the top for delicate porcelain that needs extra clearance. The flexibility is there, but the trade-off is that the shelves take up a good chunk of the interior volume. If you're consistently firing large, single-piece sculptures, you might find yourself removing the shelves just to make room, which defeats the convenience they were meant to provide. One area where the KM818 shows a subtle weakness is in its cooling cycle. The kiln's slow cool program is designed for cone 6 glazes and crystal growth, which is great if you're doing those specific types of work. However, if you need a rapid cool down to meet a tight studio schedule, you'll notice the fan runs at a modest speed, extending the cooldown time by a few extra minutes. That's not a deal breaker for most hobbyists, but it's something to keep in mind if you're juggling multiple firings in a day. The controller is another point that separates the KM818 from entry-level kilns. It offers up to 32 programmable segments, which means you can build complex firing schedules without writing down every temperature change on paper. In practice, I've seen potters create a ramp-hold-ramp sequence for a glaze that needs a precise soak at 1220 F, then a quick drop to 1100 F for a crystal glaze overlay. The interface is straightforward, no cryptic menus, yet it still gives you the depth you'd expect from a professional kiln. The downside? Because the controller is fairly feature-rich, there's a slight learning curve. Beginners may spend a little time watching tutorial videos before they feel confident setting up a multi-segment program. So, should you buy the Skutt KM818? If you're looking for a kiln that balances size, temperature stability, and program flexibility for a home or small studio, it checks most of the boxes. It avoids